Hi creators, welcome or welcome back to Academic Phoenix Plus. My name is Monica and I am your guide through texturing. In this video tutorial, we're going to go over how to texture this isometric cat cafe using Substance Painter. In the previous tutorials, we modeled it, we UV mapped it, and now this scene is ready to be textured. This is exciting because this is the part where we get to tell a story through our texture. If you're new to this channel, I post tutorials on a weekly basis. Software includes Maya, ZBrush, Substance Painter, and so much more. So if that is your sort of thing, please consider subscribing. So bring out your creativity, open up that software, and let's go ahead and get started in texturing this isometric cat cafe using Substance Painter, but also create some procedural shading using Maya. So this is our scene so far. I'm going to go ahead and jump over here to the workspace for UV editing because I'm going to be able to bring all of these objects in, but Substance Painter will treat it all as if it was one giant map, and to keep them separate, you have to assign separate shaders. So for example, for these little cups, they all are going to be sharing the same shader, which is going to be a basic AI standard surface shader. I'm going to zoom in here and grab these and right click, assign a new material, new material. I always use the Arnold AI standard surface shader, and you always want to make sure that you label it because I'm going to have a lot of them. So let's go ahead and call this our coffee cups shader. Now this is known as procedural shading, which means that I am not really going to be adding any texture to it. I'm just going to leave it as this. Maybe I can add a little bit of roughness, but overall this isn't really going to have much shading to it. Same thing for this one, for example. This is also going to be another AI standard surface shader. So let's go ahead and go to assign new material, Arnold. Make sure you select Arnold AI standard surface shader, and this one is going to be glass. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this transmission, change this all the way to 1, and now I have a glass shader. Again, don't forget to label it. I'm going to call that one glass shader. For this one, I plan it to glow. So in this case, UV mapping wasn't really necessary. I UV mapped it anyway, which doesn't look so hot, but we can always go ahead and assign a new material, Arnold AI standard surface, and this is going to be my glow. And to make something glow, we're going to scroll down to the emission and then just go ahead and crank this up. Now the question is, what color would you like it? You can keep it as white if you choose, but I'm going to go ahead and make it a little bit in the orangey side. You know, we haven't really seen what it looks like so far, so let's check it out. Let's go ahead and render it, and I'm going to go through my render camera, and let's go ahead and hit play, and that's what we have so far. Nothing major, just basic shading so far. Now these are my procedural shaders. These are the ones that I'm going to just leave alone. The other ones are in fact going to have some sort of shading. So this is where applying different materials to particular things is going to matter. So for example, for these guys, I believe they share the exact same UV space. So if I select these three, and if I press the number 3 on my keyboard, if I select these three, they share the exact same UV space. And that's great. So what I can do is assign a new material, Arnold AI standard surface. This is going to be my container, right? So my coffee container shader. Same thing for this bar. If I select this bar, you can see that they share the same UV space, and therefore I can assign a new material for this one. So again, I'm going to choose an Arnold AI standard surface shader, and this is going to be the coffee bar shader. For the wall, they take up this much space. Let's say I want to add the windowsill, for example. You can see that the windowsill is also taking up space. Now, if I wanted them to share the same texture, then I need to make sure my overlapping UVs are not there. So I will go back to the UV toolkit. Then I'm going to go under the transform. I'm going to get and set the UVs, and then I'm going to lay them out. And then it keeps the same texture density for both the windowsill and for that. Now, part of the issue is that some of this is all over the place, so I'm not a big fan of what it did here. I'm going to double click on these. I like to place things close as possible, but you can see there's like very little room, if any. So one option could be that I could rotate it. Right, so you know that it's going over the UV if you see this. So I'm just going to go ahead and move them, and I would have preferred that they were going the same direction. Next, let's go ahead and find our, let's see, our cat bed here. But let's go ahead and do a get. Let's go do a set. Let me grab these faces and then click layout. The nice thing about layout is that it does keep the texel density. Sometimes it gets really close to the edge, a little too close, so I might actually take this one, for example, and just scale it in just a tiny bit, just to make me feel a little better about it. It's always a good idea to make sure there's a little wiggle room there, because otherwise you might get some interesting results. Let's go ahead and create a new material, another AI standard surface shader. This is going to be the cat bed. Here we have the signage. Again, you might want to take these and just kind of scale them just a tiny bit in. And then same thing with this one. As you can see, I am going to have a lot of maps, and that's something to be aware of. So this is going to be my signage. I'm going to select all these guys, and they already has the glass shader, so I really don't need to select that. But I am going to select these guys, which is going to be and assign a new material, Arnold, AI standard surface shader, and this is going to be the pour over. Moving on, the chairs are going to be the same. So this group and the other group right here, I'm going to assign a new material. You can see that they have overlapping UVs, which is perfect. So let's go ahead and assign a new one, Arnold AI standard surface, and then chair shader. Now, if you guys didn't want to have as many shaders as I am creating right now, what you could do is put multiple pieces in one layout, in one shader, and then Substance Painter can do the rest. For example, let's say the cat scratcher and this one, let's say I wanted them to share the same texture. I'm going to go ahead and assign the existing material, and this one was called the cat bed, so I'm going to call it the cat scratcher. Don't forget that there's overlapping UVs, and that would cause a lot of problems. We're going to do get, we're going to go set, and then we're going to layout. Again, the UVs are not going to be perfect by far. I might actually just go to faces, select all of them, and just kind of scale it in just a tiny bit. If they're really close to each other, you might want to just kind of nudge things around just a little bit so that they don't cause any other type of issues. So you might want to just kind of move things, because if they're really close, sometimes their color will bleed onto each other, and then that can cause problems. So I like to just make sure that there's a little bit of room for error, I guess you could call it, because things happen all the time, and I might as well try to avoid it as best as I can. So, I mean, I left a pretty good gap there. Oh, this is really close too. Let me just move this up a little bit. I can probably move this down a little bit. Something like that, right? So now they're sharing the same shader. There's no overlapping UVs, so that should work. Let's go ahead and do the table next. So I'm going to go ahead and just make this a little smaller. And I'm going to assign a new material, Arnold, AI standard surface. This is going to be the table shader. I'll be honest, I was debating about keeping this the same as the coffee cups, just to keep it nice and white. So I might actually go ahead and do the, let's see, where'd it go? Coffee bar, container, coffee cups. So just keep it white. Next is going to be the floors. They're the floorboards. So I'm going to assign a new material, Arnold AI standard surface, and this one is going to be called the floor shader. I believe I have, oh yeah, I did grab that one too, great. Okay, the leaves, I believe the leaves are relatively stacked to one another. They're going to share the exact same shader, Arnold AI standard surface shader, and these are going to be the leaves. Let's grab the coffee espresso machine here. Assign a new material. Again, double check to make sure your UVs are looking good. Arnold AI standard surface, pressure shader. I've got this one random board that I might share with the sign, just because I don't feel like it needs its own separate thing. Or another thing I could do is share it with the bar, which actually has a lot of space in the first place. So I'm going to do that. So I'm going to select the bar. I'm going to select the shelf. And then I am going to just scale it down, rotate it, and fit it into the seam. So the trick though is that they do have to share the same shader. So let's go ahead and choose the coffee bar shader. There we go. And then finally, let's grab these little leaves right here, these succulents. I'm going to assign a new material, Arnold AI standard surface, and this is going to be the succulent. And I feel like I missed something. Everything's white. This one, did I not add Oh no, this one doesn't have one. Well, that would be important. Let's go ahead and assign a new material, Arnold, AI center surface, and this is going to be the wall window shader. And I think I captured everything but the actual coffee itself. And that one I am debating where to put it because it's all by itself and it might actually be its own shader. Coffee is it's a liquid, so I might just create a regular Arnold AI standard surface shader and just make it look like it's brown. And then increase the roughness a little bit. And I think that will be okay. So now things should have its own shader information. We're ready for exporting. So let's go ahead and grab everything. I do recommend that you delete the history and freeze the transformations to make sure everything's good. I'm going to go ahead and save as. I don't want to mess up. And then we're ready for exporting. So let's go ahead and go to File, Export Selection. I'm going to grab an OBJ. You can see that I placed it in scenes, and you can leave it in scenes, but I like to put it in assets. And this is going to be my cat cafe. And it's going to place an OBJ. Export. We're going to jump into Substance Painter. Let's go to File, New. We're going to select. Let's go to Isometric Café. Let's go to our assets. There it is. I like to make my document size a little bigger. Everything else looks good. Click OK. And there we go. Next, we are going to go to our texture settings here on the right. And you can see that everything is called AI Standard Surface SG, which is kind of like the annoying part is that it doesn't actually label everything according to what I had in Maya. But I'm going to have to go through and label all over again. I'll pause the video. You guys don't need to watch that. But let's go ahead and scroll down into texture settings and let's go to Bake Mesh Maps. This is what drives everything. Let's see, the output size right now is 1024. That works. So we're going to go through and we're going to go and change my ambient occlusion to secondary rays to 256. Same thing for the curvature. And then same thing for the thickness. Everything else looks good. And then we're going to bake, and it's going to take a second, but this is always fun to watch because you get a chance to kind of see how everything works, what exactly everything is. It tells you at the bottom what it is. Do you have an ID? And then, normal, world space, conclusion, curvature. So just some basics. The curvature is literally the edges of the objects. The normal is the, what's up, down, left, right. Ambient is basically the almost like contact shadows. Whatever's closer to each other will create you a shadow. So it's basically like shadow information. Now, what's interesting is that my cafe symbol is gone. So I feel like I might have accidentally hit it. I did. Oopsie. But it's there. All right, let's go back to return to painting mode. I'm not too worried about how these mugs turned out, though, as you can see, not so hot. But that's because they have overlapping shaders and stuff like that. But that's going to get procedural shading, so I'm not too worried about that. Same thing with the sign. I'm not too worried about that. But everything else is actually looking pretty good. So now we get to start having some fun. Now, not everything's labeled. I did take a little time to label the other ones. So, for example, this is the coffee, just regular coffee, and I spelled it wrong. These are the mugs. So you can see that the mugs have overlapping UVs, which is why it's causing such craziness. But I'm not too worried about that. This is the glass pour over, which I'm not worried about either. This is my signage, which I'm not worried about either. This is the containers. And let's see, this is the bar and shelf. And let's see, this one is the cat assets. And then we have this one, which is the random. So I'm just going to say random. All right. And now we can start shading. So let's say, for example, I wanted to start on the walls. So looking at my list, I can go through and find the walls. Oh, it actually automatically put in alphabetic order. That's nice. And then I can look for a shader. So over here, we have regular shaders, but at the second tab, we have what's called Smart Materials, and we can type in brick, for example, and then see if anything shows up. If you're not finding exactly what you're looking for, that's when we get to have some fun with the texture. So for example, I can go ahead and drag this in, and you can see that this brick or this texture could look like a brick, but right now it's looking really rough. But I do like the color for this. It's called a clay terrace. let's say we have stone or something like that. We also have this rock face, right? So that's something to also look at. Not convinced. Another thing we have is this wall here. So we can also take a look at, just take a look at textures and see if there's anything that you really find appealing. But we can type in wall and see that we have some concrete. We can grab the concrete and plug it in, and I'm going to undo and then just kind of explore what you like. Now what happens is we need to go to our layers, and you might want to turn off the clay to show you what it could look like. And right now what you're looking for is kind of like a base, and then you can also look over here. Now there is a whole list of stuff. You can look for stone, you can look for all sorts of really nice textures and things like that. So play around with the textures that you think would look really nice. So for me, I think this one would look good for the left side, but obviously I don't want it to look so gray. What I'm going to do is take a look at its attributes. So if you scroll down, you can see that we have a bunch of options such as height. We also have these things, which is concrete variation. So I can make it look dirtier or less, which I actually want to go for less. This is the concrete color. You might want to pick something, a different color. So I might go for a little bit in the tone. I do have like a color swatch that I want to kind of choose. So I might choose something a little brighter because I do want to make this feel a little friendlier. And then I can bring back the clay, but I also want to make sure that the green only affects this left side, and then the stone and the bricks are going to be on this side. So that's where the black masking comes in. So right click, click add black mask. It disappeared, but don't panic. We can bring it back. And there's a couple of ways to do this. If you've never seen me use Substance Painter before, I have a tutorial on it, so take a look at that. But over here to the left, we have a tool which is called a selection tool, and we can select faces. So this means that I can go through and select the face that I want it to be green. So I can grab it here. As you can see, I found it. So now I can go ahead and click here, which looks really nice. Now the same thing for this one, this clay one. I don't want that noise from my texture to affect this wall here. So what I want to do is do the same thing. I'm going to add a black mask, and then I'm going to say I only want it to impact here. Right, so now we have both worlds. Now I do want this to look a little bit less messy, so I'm going to scroll down and see what options I have. So you can see I can make it a little bit less bumpy. I can make it a little less rough. Maybe increase the roughness variations and things like that. I'm not seeing too much of an impact. This one's nice. So I do want the color. Next is going to be the brick itself. There's a couple ways I can tackle this. One way is to actually find brick and use that, or I can paint it myself. So I'm going to try painting it myself. So let's create a new fill layer. I'm going to turn on height, but remove color. This is going to be an indentation. Actually, you know what? Let me keep the color so I can make it a little darker. We'll play it by ear. Maybe this color. We'll see. But what I'm going to do is I need a black mask. Then I can grab this paintbrush, and if I paint on it, you can see the effect. Now, it's a little dramatic here, but let's go ahead and make this brush smaller. Control Shift, and then you can make a straight line, right? So there's a couple of ways we can tackle it this way. This is one method to the madness. Sometimes it might be easier to actually find texture that looks like brick, might be easier, but this is one method that we can use to create brick. Right? And then after that, it's about making the brick texture. So maybe I'll just go like this. Be very careful. And then I'll just continue to create. And then I will continue from there. But I do want to keep going. I want to show you some other stuff like there is stylized things in here. So if you type in stylized, there is kind of like a stylized textures for wood, for example. So if you grab this wood and drag it in, you can see that we can get this stylized texture, which is really fun. Again, there are options that you can play around with. So for example, maybe you want more wood fiber amounts. Maybe I want this to be a little bit more in the orangey side because I'm kind of going for brighter colors here. We also have the roughness, depending on how glossy and rough you want it. Like I mentioned, different types of fibers here. We get wood variation here. There's a lot of really fun things that you can do with or what it provides here. So that's kind of like a quick way of getting this type of look. We can grab this darker one and add it to our chair. Now you can see that the chair looks really nice, but I also want different colors as well, and I think this is a little much. So same story, take a look at it, see which one you like. I might make it just a tiny little bit darker. And let's close that out. And then the roughness is fine. Maybe I'll reduce some of the fiber. And just gonna decrease some of this intensity. And then what's fun about this is that I can go ahead and duplicate this. I can change the color. Let's say to a brighter color. And then just like before, we can go ahead and add a black mask. Select this tool and then say which one do you want it to be light. So for example, I would like this area. Now you can see I don't want to select every face. I want to select the whole model. So you can click on this one and say, I want this model. And I also want this model. And you can see that right away it has it. Now I do want to flip that too with this one. I'm going to choose black mask because I want the black mask to only affect these legs. And that's it. So they don't share normal. And then I can go in back to the stylized, go back to the attributes, and then change some other aspects of it. So I can make it look a little bit different. So same story with this one. I would like the top to be sharing the same shader. So I can select this stylized wood, copy it, go to the table, and then paste it. And there we go. Now it does have a mask, so you can remove it if you choose to, but that seems to be working just fine on my end. And then I want to choose something a little darker for this one. So I want to choose something a little bit more steel-like. So let's go ahead and go to steel. Maybe this smart material might have something better for me. And I want something a little dark down here. Pretty, okay, this one's nicer. So I am going to add a black mask, and I just wanted to affect this. Again, I've got the model selected. So then we have this so far. Now, I do encourage you to explore these smarter materials because there are things that you can remove. So for example, maybe I don't want that edge. I don't. So I removed it. This has scratches as well. So you can keep the scratches if you choose to. Then you can change the metal, which is the one that's controlling this. And then here you can go through and change some of the attributes. I mean, this thing is just, I find it so amazing. Substance Painter is pretty amazing. I'm going to go back to the chairs. I just want this wood to be darker still. So I'm going to go back to this dark wood. And I just really wanted to have a contrast. All right, I think that's a really good place to stop. As you can see, I am starting to texture this, and as long as your Maya file has everything ready, working with Substance Painter becomes really easy, and then you'll be able to create whatever you need. In the next video tutorial, I'm going to show you how to use text, how to continue texturing everything else, and then also I'll show you how to import some textures so that we can get that brick material instead of me drawing every single one of them, which I can, but it'll be nice to actually demonstrate to you how to import your own textures so that you can quickly create some beautiful work. So thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Hopefully you learned a thing or two. If you did, please like and subscribe. That is your message to me, letting me know that you like this content and that you want to see more. Please comment. I love reading your comments. I may not be able to respond to all your comments, but I do read them, and I would love to see what you think about this. And if you have any recommendations for other videos, let me know. Please share my videos if you know of a 3D artist that is looking to improve or how to figure out how to use Substance Painter, how to import their assets or the environments into Substance Painter and create a whole environment in Substance Painter. Please share my videos. That would be amazing. I would love to help other artists just like you. And also take a look at academic-phoenix-plus.com. There you can find free videos, tutorials, and so much more. So take a look at academic-phoenix-plus.com. Again, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Keep creating, and I will see you next time in the next video tutorial when we continue texturing these assets and then export it into Maya. I'll see you in the next one.